gangster, being shot, been through all the things that he's been, and is living for Jesus now. I want to hear from him. And here's what I want to share with you. We're going to be talking a lot this month about favor. Favor is connected to God's grace because now we're sons of God and we're children of God, and there's favor that comes along with that. But a story like this just tells you that no matter what you've done, no matter what you're struggling with, no matter where you've been, there is grace for that. And God will pursue you. And if he'll save a guy like Phillip, he'll save you too. Amen. So I want to have Phillip come up here and take some time to share with you his amazing testimony. Give it up for Phillip.
I get a little excited, so I might knock some stuff down. Hey, Lakewood Church, thank you for having me here today. Come on. All praise and glory, first of all, goes to my Lord and Savior, because without him, I'm a dead man, and that's a fact. I ran from street gangs. I've been running in gangs and on the street since I was about 8 years old. But in a weird way, I believe that the Lord was kind of training me for something back then. He knew where I was going to go, but I didn't. I stayed with those gangs as life continued. I had been, there's power in prayer. The one thing my grandma did for me, whether I knew it or not, was she prayed over me. Little Phillip, please find Jesus. Find the tree of life. Find your Jesus. Well, I didn't want to for another reason. There were a lot of other guys like me in my neighborhood. We weren't in the best of neighborhoods, and there's a lot of them out there in any city. It ain't nothing new. You guys, many of you can probably relate to me. Some of you just can't, but this is what it was like in the neighborhood. There was a lot of shootings. There were things that happened. I saw many friends and lost a lot of friends. So you got used to that, and their families prayed for them too. And there were some things that were happening in my household that weren't right. I can say that now, and I was embarrassed for a long time, but I surrendered to the Lord, so I don't got to be ashamed of nothing. Just got to tell you what happened. And it's okay to bring some of this stuff out, but there were some things that weren't quite right. And every time I called on Jesus or told my mom about Jesus or something, he didn't show up. My friends, they ended up dead. Where were you, Mr. Jesus? So I developed this anger toward him at a young age, and we all do when things don't go our way. Some of us see more bad things than others, and then we just kind of get numb to that, and that's a dangerous thing in our world, especially for us men, is to get your younger generation that comes after you numb to pain and evil. But that stayed in my life, and as I grew older into my teens, the more stubborn I got. Man, we were stealing back in the day. When I was younger, we played actually with Tonka trucks. We were outside. People left their garage doors open, the houses unlocked, the gates unlocked. Well, my neighborhood, when I got of age, that was bad news. Because if it was left unattended to, you didn't want it. So it went with me. And there was this thing called the flea market. Back home, we call them flea market. They call them swap meets. We, at 13 years old, were setting up our own stands over there, and you were probably buying your tools back from us and didn't know it. So we were hitting neighborhoods left and right. That accumulated into a little bit more crime. I started to get in trouble, doing some juvie, getting a little record at a young age. I had a good fighting reputation. My dad loved it. Never had anything like, hey, how you doing in school and things like that. But life continued to turn, and the more into the gang life I got, the more into wanting to be what those guys were, the more I hung with them, the more I stayed with them, they became my brothers. And they came, some of you might be able to relate, there's a camaraderie there, there's something that I don't have at home. And it didn't matter really what it involved, because we're in it together. One day, I happened to be, there was a little strip mall in my neighborhood. And I was on my bicycles with a couple of my buddies. And anybody remember baseball cards or football cards? Well, I liked them too, but I didn't like paying for them. So we would hit the strip mall in my neighborhood, And one time we was in there, my buddies would go inside, and they would distract the clerks and all that, and I'd be over there stuffing my pockets full. Every hole I got, I'm putting cards in there, and then we'd run out. There's one particular time, I'm stealing the cards, and I hear a big voice behind me say, "Hey, boy, what are you doing down there?" "Mind your own business, old man." "Are you stealing?" I get up. "Guys, come on, let's go, man. We got caught." So we run out the store. Well, this big guy comes huffing and puffing, and man, he was a big guy. He's bigger than Juan. This guy was 400 and some change. So he made it to the curve, and that's as far as he got. And I remember looking back at my bicycle, and I said, and I laughed because I seen him huffing and puffing, and I said, "Man, you'll never catch me, you fat." And I used a few choice words. Well, life went on for me. I didn't go back there for a little bit. A year later, for some reason, I'm walking by myself, which was rare, and I'm walking in front of this store. See, and there was a bakery there. There was a tool like a hardware store, a liquor store, but I never bothered to read any of the signs above these stores. I didn't bother to see this. Hey, here's Giovanni's Donut Shop, Giovanni's Bakery, Giovanni's Pizzeria, Giovanni's Liquor Shop, Giovanni's Hardware. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. Well, I'm walking by this restaurant, and I'm smelling the bakery, and man, and I remember it to this day. Somebody grabbed me out of my shoes. Literally, I left one shoe there. Drug me down a hallway, slapped me against some walls, and I hit some tables on the way back. I knew I was in a restaurant, but I couldn't see who had me or what was going on. We made it to the back room, and he slams me up against the wall, punched me in the face, slaps me around, and then he gets my face, and he's looking at me, and he says, "I'll never catch you, you fat. That's what you told me?" Whoa, man. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, "Man, what are you going to do? Are you going to call the cops, man?" And he says, you think the cops are going to pay me back what you were stealing from me?" "No, man. Here's what you're going to do." "What? Anything, man. Whatever." "You're going to go home. You're going to tell your father what you did. And then you're going to get a pair of black slacks, a white shirt, and some black shoes, and you're going to come back to work for me tomorrow. And you're going to start paying that money back." "Okay, man, I'll be right. I'll go right now and get some clothes." Man, I got out of there. I went blocks all the way. I avoided this place by a mile the next day. I didn't go home and tell my pops what I did. I mean, it'll blow over. I just won't go there for a little while. And the next day I didn't go to work. The following day, when I get home from whatever it was I was doing, I walk in, and in my bedroom, there's a pair of black pants and a white shirt, some black shoes laying on that bed. I'm like, oh, man. My pop walks in, and he says, "Boy, I don't know what you did, but I know who you angered, so you will be at work tonight." Oh, man. So I started to work for John Giovanni. I was his busboy. And John was a very unique man, and I'll get into that. But my point here is I graduated knowing this man from street gangs into organized crime. This man at one time that I recall, and I think this is one of the first times that I really started playing with Satan. He would have meetings in Big John's restaurants before he opened up. People would come and he'd sit at a table and meet with various people. He had a couple guys with him, a couple, I call them good fellas, a couple wise guys, bodyguards. They were the only two that ever sat at John's table. If you ever wanted to have a conversation with John, he would talk to them. They'd walk over to the other side, ask your question, then walk back and talk to him. You didn't get near John. This one particular time, these two guys brought in somebody, and they did sit at John's table. And I saw them talking. To back up just a second, my grandma was still praying for me. There were people at church praying for me that I didn't even know. They would come visit the restaurant. "Hey, your mama said you was here." And I call my grandma Mama. your mama said she was here, and my name is Sister So-and-so, and I mean, this is kind of weird, man. I don't need no prayers here today, okay? And that would happen often, and I didn't, and I would push Jesus away. But while I'm doing my thing, God's at work doing his thing around me. And it wasn't until I put pen to paper and wrote my story down and that I started to remember God's grace. Well, I'm back to doing this stuff with John. Before these guys came in, see, they had this, John, all of his restaurants and all his buildings, they connected in one corridor. There was one particular door in this place that nobody ever used. So one day I asked John, hey, John, Mr. G, where does this door go? And he walks back and he looks and says, what door? This door, man, the one with the handle right here. It's always light. I don't see nobody going there. He looked back again and said, I don't see a door there. Okay, I know where we're going with this. Door that don't exist now. It's another something John's got going. On this particular time, these guys had their meeting with John, and something wasn't quite going right. I could see it. And this is the first time that I had ever even talked with the two guys that were with him. But when those guys agreed on whatever they were doing, they got up from his table, and instead of walking out the front door, they started walking back where I was. And in my area, there was a bread warmer. I had my bus station. And by the way, if you got young men and or kids anywhere, you cannot go wrong by putting them to work in an Italian restaurant. Man, I'm telling you. Jeannie was his wife, always made me eat. I was always too skinny to her and before I started work and after work. They came back to my station, and one guy went. The second guy that they brought in as their guest went, and they opened that door that didn't exist, and they went into that door. The third guy came, and he said, Little Anthony. John never called me Phillip. He always called me by my middle name. He said, Little Anthony, if anybody comes out that door other than the two guys that you see here, can you put one between the eyes? I had been around guns. I had been around back then in the streets in those days, man. We handled it like this. There wasn't a lot of the drive-by stuff as there is in past currently. And I said, for some reason, I don't know why I answered this way, but for some strange reason, I came out real quick. Yeah, sure, I can do that. He grabbed a .38 pistol, revolver, and he put it on top of the cloth on top of the bread warmer and covered it. When he went into that room, I grabbed the gun, and I wasn't afraid of it. I felt a little sense of power out of this thing, and the fact that he's asking me to do it. Okay, I put it back. What seemed like hours was only about 20 minutes. He came back out that door, and he said, Little Anthony, can you drive? I said, yeah. Big John's keys are laying on the table over there. Go get the keys. You know where John's caddy's at? Yeah. Jump in that caddy, drive it around the building, park here and back, leave it running, pop the trunk, walk back around the building, come back here and go to work. Can you do that? Sure, man, I can do that. All right. Couple $100, put them in my pocket, man. Easy money. And that's as far as my brain went. The road from thought to action was very short for me. So I was happy about that. I don't know what happened in that room. It was never talked about. 2 weeks later, those guys, they disappeared for a while. 2 weeks later, they come back into the restaurant, and life went on as normal. I have a pretty good idea of what happened that day, and that was what I would call my first taste of the mafia.